If you recall in the very first video of this series, I talked about the concept, the physics concept of pushing versus pulling and how all movement is a push or a pull. When it comes to the golf swing, as we've gone through this video series, it's a critical concept that you understand pushing versus pulling, and that applies right for the first foot that you move the club off the ball, and we're going to talk about the takeaway with that. So I have my assistant here, Chris, and I'm going to have him hold this club against his shoulders, and I'm going to have him just stand there without doing anything, and I'm going to move him around. I'm going to be his force of movement, as we talked about in the first video. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to push him from either side. So as I push him, oh, don't fall too far off. I'm going to push him off here, and then I'm going to push him from this side, and you're going to notice that his head is going to tend to want to move around. Now watch what happens when I pull from the other side. Now when I pull, notice how his head stays really centered, and he's not moving around much at all. This concept is critical because as I pull, I'm beginning to move towards center, toward a fixed point. Now when you push something, where does it move? A push can move in any direction away from center. It's always moving away from the force of movement, and a pulling motion is moving toward the force of movement. So if you remember my little toy truck I had at the very beginning of the first video, that concept is applicable here in the takeaway. If I get Chris to pull his right shoulder back and in towards his spine, it's going to get the club to move out away in the right direction, in the right spot every single time. So Chris, go ahead and get in a setup position here. And all I want you to do is focus on taking that right shoulder back and pulling it back as you take the club back. So notice as he does that, the club goes right into the right spot. Now let's turn down the line and let's do the same thing. And again, I don't want you to do anything but just focus on pulling your right shoulder back as you take the club back. And as he does that, and let's just keep doing this back and forth, just focus on pulling the right shoulder back, not moving his arms or club or hands or anything at all. He's just moving his right shoulder. The club goes into the exact same spot, thank you, every single time. This is a critical concept if you want to stay centered in your takeaway and get the club to go in the same spot every time. All you really need to understand is, again, this concept of pushing versus pulling. So I've got a great video on the takeaway I want you to take a look at that's going to walk you through how to get into these great positions without any effort. You're going to go from moving the club 9 feet, you're going to focus on moving 2 inches in this little video on